There we go. Hello everyone, and welcome to another Friday stream here at Strange Loop Games. My name is Jens, working as lead game designer here, and today we'll go over some of the an older feature that hasn't really been highlighted as much because there's been a few things that we'd liked to have changed with it. We've also gotten a ton of feedback that has been absolutely astronomical in kind of going over and kind of see what that feedback is and how we're changing what we're doing with it to make it a little bit more user friendly, user able, and easier to understand, and so on and so forth. We'll also show off the Lighthouse lamp that we teased a little bit about. It's finally kind of done asset wise, and everything set up, as well as the town bell. The town bell is not sounding anything yet, but that is something that we're looking at remedying as well. So just give me a second here and we'll switch over right away. So this might be a little bit of a shorter stream since it's not kind of taking you through crazy. Why did that not work? Ooh, I forgot the power hammer. That's why. I can actually take you through that. So, kind of maybe some people are finding this interesting somehow. Maybe, perhaps. Yeah, we got the two cats that decided now is an excellent time to play after Ethan and everything else. So they're gonna be rummaging around in the background. Try to ignore them as much as possible, if possible. Yeah, so actually a good thing. So when the art team composes an item or an object, it needs to be hooked up in Unity, and this is using addressables for anyone that's kind of tinkering in with the dev tier stuff. And the easiest way to do that, if we just hop out of play mode, is I wanted to show off how the power hammer is looking now, and it's finally in. So we're gonna go here, we're gonna look for the power hammer, we're gonna grab the prefab. I did set it up as an addressable. Why did that not save? Did it just not save properly? Maybe. Maybe just Unity being very sad. But yeah, so on exhaustion, what is it? What do we mean by exhaustion? Some people might be familiar with the term, and it is a state of the game where it's limiting you into the quantity of time you can spend kind of doing stuff, in terms of spending labor, adding labor to work orders, doing actual work in terms of, grabbing a pickaxe, chopping away at a piece of rock, and so on and so forth. And it was introduced as a way to kind of mitigate the discrepancy between servers that might be wanting to have more of a casual approach, or to a community that might not have a large volume of spare time, but don't want to, have a single group of people just completely buzzing away from everyone. Is that just not initialized properly? Yeah, modern hammer. No. Power hammer just doesn't want to play nice, I guess. Getting the change locally. Oh well, we'll see if I can switch over branch to the other one, to the other one to show that also. Is the rest of the objects working? Lighthouse lamp. Yeah, so those are working. I'm gonna give town bell. Grab that one as well. Doesn't have the thing set up, but yeah. So we'll get to those. Yeah. So exhaustion is basically a way to limit the quantity of time you can spend doing stuff versus you can still do activities that doesn't require hard calorie when you're performing those actions. So that would be things like, pull up daytime here. So that would be things like, you know, moving around in a truck depending on the settings, to buy stuff, sell stuff, logistically moving things around, interacting with stores and the whole government system and so on and so forth. Because that's stuff you can do without spending labor to do them. So the exhaustion system kind of came into fruition as a means to directly limit raw resource generation. So mining, you know, wood cutting and so on, where you accumulate raw material to be able to process it and kind of keep feeding the industry and keep feeding the research, and be a better way for servers to be able to deal with that. However, as anyone that has tinkered with it has noticed that there are a few flaws with it as is right now, and we've gotten a lot of feedback in terms of what people will want to be able to customize with it versus what's just directly hard set limits internally that they can't adjust, as well as kind of more, just generally more settings to make it fit their community better, as the alternative have basically been not using it at all. And there are a few servers that are using it, formerly EcoWorld with Monsoon at one of the helms, has been absolutely amazing in getting some feedback surrounding that, because they've been running the exhaustion system and tweaked it a little bit locally to make it fit their community. So we've taken a lot of feedback from that, and kind of baking that in. Simplifying tooltips and just making it a bit easier to understand. So one of the things that we significantly overhauled is the whole rollover mechanic, or where time not spent is accumulated indefinitely to kind of keep, like, if you're allocated 4 hours per day, but you're only playing 2 hours one day, and then instead of those 2 hours that you saved being lost, making sure that they are kind of saved up to be utilized up to a certain limit threshold. And that was something that didn't really work as well as we wanted it to. Yeah, basically battery storage, and the cats are going nuts, being very vocal. So yeah, we're changing these out as we're kind of going along, and it's a few pieces left on that system upgrade that is going into 10.2. It's kind of the last bits and big feature change that's going into 10.2. So once that's done, we should be in a pretty good state to be able to roll out a playtest, possibly. I need a cat webcam. Oh, it would need to be mobile, roaming around and tracking them as they rummage around the apartment. Because they are running back and forth quite a handsome bit. But yeah, so generally setting wise, you're able to turn in how much time you accumulate per day. We also wanted to add in a system where you are able to define how much time on specific days. So say you get a small portion on weekdays and then you get more during the weekends. That's something that Monsoon was using that we really liked and wanted to kind of bake into the vanilla aspect of it. And then just giving more flesh to this tooltip to kind of explain better, to make it legible, and without kind of over empowering with text. So this is not the final form of it, but it's on the way to progress. We're also moving all the exhaustion related things into its own configuration file. It's still a work in progress, making way forward, but we are separating that out from the current. It was nested in, I think, difficulty settings, if I remember correctly. Is there a soft cap option where calorie gets more and more expensive? It is a good question. It's something that we were looking at, and it might be something that we follow up with further improvements to the system. It's not at the moment. It's currently, it'll just outright just like hard cap you and say, hey, you can't do this. But we also wanted to do things like being able to specify exactly which interactions you're limited by. Can we build and trade with Exhaustion? Trade, yes. Build is a tricky question because trade or building is involving, like if you look at road construction, for instance, like infrastructure building, you're building with a hammer, while you're still doing like significant improvements to the general surrounding areas, or plausibly progression stuff. So it's probably on the borderline, but it is something that we want to be able to specify whether or not a server allows specific interactions, such as build, place, or mine, dig, and so on and so forth. So a little bit of leeway in terms of what you can do interaction wise. But a few of those are still on the stretch goal for 10.2, so they might not make it in that update. We also wanted to introduce that whole piece of, if you just sit down idly on decoration furniture like seats and benches and so on, it pauses Exhaustion, so it's not constantly being used if you're going idle or AFK or and so on. Yeah, trading. So vehicles are intended to be able to be toggleable on the server side, so the server would dictate whether or not certain vehicles can be used or not. We also wanted to make sure that there is I call it tactical toilet. Yeah. We also wanted to add in some quality of life things for when you're looking in the server lists for finding servers with Exhaustion. Versus, if you want to be searching for them rather than, not finding them and so on and so forth. So just a whole slew of kind of how to find them, when to find them. Using toilets should refill Exhaustion. I mean, it's not impossible to make a mod that does that. Like, use toilet once every 2 hours and it adds half an hour or something. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of quality of life things, and any feedback surrounding it, just pop it in there. Hit me up or hit Dennis up. As we'd like to see more servers take advantage of the Exhaustion system, because we think that it can be quite powerful and quite helpful in a lot of scenarios where people are being overwhelmed by someone, spending 18 hours straight progressing through mechanics, and suddenly they have a whole bunch of trucks out and no one barely has an iron axe. So there are a lot of strengths to it. Could there be an option for the mayor or server owner to bake some energy cookies in case they need more emergency work done in a single day? So from an admin perspective, there are a few things you can do. You can use, I think it should be taking a user. So you have exhaust, which is basically draining you completely. And then you have energize, which adds another hour per, I think it takes parameters as well. See what it says. Yeah, so it takes, the energize command takes a target, which is optional. If you don't have a target, it'll target self. and then the quantity of hours it adds to that. Sandfish. I'd love a way to pause the exhaustion to be able to enter build mode and not end up building after reaching exhaustion. Yeah, the issue with that is that it's very, very exploitative in that regard. Like, we don't want to introduce something that kind of forces people to have to use commands as like a general approach to the game. But on the other hand, I do kind of like what you're kind of going for with it. Actually, let's do a fly. Let's do a. While I'm just idly chatting, let's see if I can remember how to do this. Level 10, 15. Right. What is that thing called? Pretty sure it's called granite block, but it might not be. Sand. We go sandstone instead. Can we do sandstone? Or is it wanting sandstone? Doesn't really want it. Wanted to do like a little pillar thing. How about a tool that has energy on it, and instead of exhausting the player, it can exhaust the tool, and the server owner can give out tools for that kind of project. It's not a bad idea, but it could also be kind of weird. Community hammer. That extra energy could be nice for something like a day of the sea level rise, and everyone could go over their building limit. Their limit building sand walls to protect the city, something unexpected. I mean, it's not completely impossible, but it you know, we also kind of want the tool usage to be sane in that regard. Yeah, but it didn't like the sandstone block. Or it didn't like the granite block. Elma, it's not liking it. I know I had this I know it works. Oh yeah, it's not liking. I'm an idiot. There we go. Look at that, and then we do a level here. Freaking space usage. Elma is also lost in that. Do I want that grass here? Let's just keep the grass up here. What I was thinking here was a little lighthouse. Not so little, but yeah. Anything else in regards to exhaustion? Like there's like I said, any and all feedback about especially from server owners, but also from general users that would you know, enjoy it might not be the right term, but maybe just not be well, that is a mischievous cat wrecking stuff again. What did it do? How did it do? There we go. But yeah, because the goal of it is basically down to making it more of an even playing field between people that not necessarily having a whole bunch of time versus people that can spend a lot more. Server owners may like less exhaustion on the resources. I'm not entirely catching what you mean by that. Any thoughts here on the early game balance and gathering papers being needed for basic upgrades? Also need to feed the math. Upgrades in general is gonna get a bit of a do-over here within a fairly reasonable time. That will kind of shift things around a bit, but it'll also be the whole maintenance stuff that we're working on is also gonna shift a lot of things in that regards, because right now upgrades are basically the only way to kind of have a lot of the professions being involved in some way or shape. And with the maintenance, that's gonna shift a little bit. So the general upgrades are gonna be having a little bit of a different cost, and not be as kind of entwined with some of the professions that they currently are. That's probably fine. So let's grab that. What do we want to build this out of? Granite, maybe? Farmers are too rich now. Need something for them to buy and spend their money on. That is also something that is gonna shuffle things around. I don't think it's 3x3s. We need a 7x7. There we go. Something in that regard. Maybe. Maybe. I've run some servers for my community, and we've always had that one guy that no life that this is wonderful to have, to keep people on a more level playing field. The only issue I have with it sometimes is that we want to have events or have things that need to be done for the greater good for the entire server, and I wouldn't want people to expend their own exhaustion for it. Hence the idea for a build tool, or I guess a food. Yeah, you can definitely do some modding stuff for it. We might even do it's not a bad idea actually. I might throw in some code related to just like refill exhaustion on the equivalent. When will the avatar part scarf when flying around or stop appearing in front? It is actually related to some pieces of clothing specifically that is kind of cropping out. Our team is kind of looking at it. We're trying to figure out what the best approach to it is. We also kind of might actually just do /util. Can do that. That should render me completely invisible. Yeah. Dun, 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 dun. I think 4 shifts. Yeah. Always like the idea of starts going up faster for people who have less stars than the average on the server. Yeah, Dennis was talking to me about it, and we have a bit of a catch-up mechanic on Tiger, and apparently the cat is wrecking things. We were talking about it, and there is for anyone that is in here that is playing on or have played on White Tiger, we have a kind of catch-up mechanic where, yeah, that's what cats do best, where you can join a server way later, and it gives you a, should I have it 4 versus 3 just to kind of be confusing? Maybe. Where you kind of get a higher XP gain by joining later, or well, you know, it wouldn't be higher XP gain, but it gives you experience based on the base level experience gain over the course of those days. So you're not starting at blank, just 1 star. You have the benefit of being able to at least get a chunk of XP, so you might even get 2 stars from the start. On that, and kind of wanted to bake that into the base game, so that's probably gonna make it in. If that makes it into 10.2, we'll see. It is possibly. I'm also looking at changing out and editing some of the. This is an expensive lighthouse. Yeah. Maybe it would look better with just the corners in granite. What do you think? Just kind of shift the colors around a little bit. Maybe. Time for more circle building blocks. Nah. We like our squares. Squares are nice. Squares are even. It's an uneven lighthouse, but squares are even. Circles have so many triangles. Yeah. Maybe. How do we do an outcrop of this? Let's go for other more expensive materials. Let's grab that. Let's grab that redwood here. Do I want to do? Yeah, let's do that. Just so we get that little outcrop part. That was a stretch too far, I think. Or maybe we are doing it overkill. Yeah, let's do it the opposite way and instead just cut it down. I think I'll do that. Let's do house cat complains it hasn't been fed ever. Yeah, no, it's literally like head in the food bowl and goes meow, hasn't been fed. Do the interior in clad wall. Do we want to do clad wall? Maybe. See how it looks. We'll do 1 layer of this. How you'd get out? How you'd get up here? I don't know, but you know, it. Window grills, maybe window wall. He's being a little bit mischievous right now.
Nay.
Let's grab this and this and switch over from floor. So on the building things, we are looking at some new blocks for a future update, and I'll probably be able to tease a little bit about how those blocks actually look in game here in a not too far future. See, is there a reason we can't code remove recipes after I started because it's cached on clients? It is... It's a bit of a tricky thing, and it's like tech-wise it's because of how it's currently initializing the recipes and stored. But we are looking at doing some changes to the general system for recipes. To do a bit of an upgrade pass and to kind of shuffle these things around, because we want to move away from having plain script files and have it behave or be, being exposed in some type of scriptable form, like internal script. So either by Lua, or if it's in just plain JSON and just read as is, gives us a bit more control. I mean, it's I'm not a builder, and for not being a builder, it's a block. Dump carried. What am I doing? Let's do that, and let's just do this. And then we do time midnight, just for special effects here. So this is one of our more recent assets, as we're looking into more general kind of visually appealing decor that has it. It doesn't have necessarily gameplay things per se, but it just adds a whole heck load of ambience to it. Toby's still looking at kind of like the occluding and the light casting a beam. He's been struggling quite a bit with the curved shader. Note for Toby, add fog. We have some of it. So there are a few things with it's still kind of lighting through some walls that he's looking into and polishing. And it's a result from having to use certain things to work well with the curved shader as is. So there's still a few polished things surrounding it. However, I think he got it looking absolutely freaking stellar in terms of effect wise. I like it. It looks, it has a little bit of a spooky feeling to it. And he has a few visual polish things for it coming, but one of those things that just adds more flavor and more life to some of the objects and entities. So it's pretty nice. But it doesn't have an on-off button at the moment, so let's just do that. False. There we go. Now we can do time noon. So it has the giant light bulb in the middle, and it looks pretty rad even with it off. Wouldn't want a meteor to fly too low. No, definitely. So this is using an electrical engine, meaning it'll be electrically powered. So it has a bit of a thing. Alternative for pre-power, not at the moment, but while they were working on this thing, they felt like it'd be cool if we had something for that. So it is something that they're looking into. Yeah, like a bonfire thing, or a giant fueled pan or something that just works on combustible fuel, but still has kind of the same functionality for it. A Gondor calls for aid. And then we have another thing that put it on some granite just to kind of showcase it. We have another object that not roofs, thank you. Don't need roofs. There we go. We have another thing that is making its approach as well. Some people saw it as on the screenshot stuff and ignore the red. That's remnant from me playing around a little bit with the paint stuff. Maybe we can go in and fix the material for it. Town bell. We want to go in on, if I remember correctly, where that thing was. Inside the LODs directly. No. Cannot for the life of me remember where the material assignment was. Anyway, that's irrelevant to right now. It was on. I need to go in on the actual prefab. Something underlaying there that can we please town bell? No? Apparently not. Yeah, so on this thing, actually we can pick it up and bring it here. So anyone that's working on world objects on the modding side of things, eco-terrorist among us meeting called, does it ring all day long? At the moment it's just looping the animation. That's it. It will be kind of stationary, passively on normally, and then you interact with it to cause it to ring, and then it'll ring for a bit and then stop ringing. So it'll be nice and have, audio to it and everything else. It's a work in progress, but I was hoping to have it looking differently, but that's probably fine. Actually, hang on. We can actually do that. Let's switch this around quickly while I do this. And then we just save that out. And then I'm just gonna switch over branches quickly. Ooh, right. Didn't have that thing here. This might also be helpful for anyone that is working on the project or poking at it on the dev tier side of things. If you update to the latest Visual Studio, it'll probably flag issues with .NET packages and so on. Just jump into the global.json file and switch out the versioning on your SDK use for what you have installed. So anything above 701 should work. If it's complaining about launch, instead of having to kind of grab all the packages and so on and so forth. Visual Studio did an update where any kind of security vulnerability in it would be the same. It just, the latest Visual Studio update made it a lot more rigid in terms of security. So when it runs into NuGet packages that are out of date, or out of date in particular due to security vulnerabilities detected, it's a Boolean flag they have on it. It'll crash the project. It just won't let it compile. Yeah, basically. The latest Visual Studio update just refused to run the project with those anymore. So you can manually go into NuGet packages and update to the latest stable of the same minor version in most of the cases, if it hasn't been updated from our side. Yeah, I'll do that. I also need to go over and update the dev tier wiki on the repository as well, to kind of update versioning and packages and whatnot. Let's do that, and let's grab the latest staging build, and we should be good. Maybe see if it runs, if it wants to play nice. Think so. I think I had my changes in the latest build. They should be in here. So we've got the Lighthouse, the Lighthouse lamp, which is in. We've got the power hammer and all of the things related to blacksmithing is in. I missed a few recipes that I completely missed. But that is in a pending PR here shortly. Once that's in, the whole smelting rework is basically in. So if you do want to take a look at what that entails and how much it's changing and what it's changing, you can do that on the staging branch. Let's do that. Skip that. Did it not like me skipping that? There we go. Thank you. /fly, because now I don't have hotkey. So if anyone's curious on how I'm flying and switching back and forth, in the Unity editor, F is a hotkey to enable disable flying. Let's do power hammer. Should be in. Should be sorted. Yeah. There's a slight texturing issue, but that should be remedied after Toby's re-export. So this is the power hammer, and of course Unity decides to play nice here. Spectacular. Play nice, Unity. Play nice. Please, pretty please. I am not wanting too much here. Just play nice. We have a crash issue on staging right now that is related to the animal pathing. It's being dissected, which is why it's happening very, very randomly on. Sometimes when it's deciding to recalculate the path, it just breaks. So Casper is looking into fixing that and seeing what the hell is going on. Kind of curious as to why we didn't run into it with the actual editor, but you know, happenstances, I guess. But yeah, so this is the power hammer, and it is a bit of a tall boy. So this is your later tier. What do you want to call it? later era tool use for the blacksmithing stuff. Yeah, it's basically an upgraded anvil. It handles the steel tools, the modern tools, and anything else that we feel like would fit better into this. And as you can see here as well, I've chucked in rubber as an ingredient in the modern tools. You've got leather on the steel tools and the iron tools. So there is a bigger discrepancy versus repairing tools and crafting new ones. We also have see if I did that on this one. We've got all the new icons are sorted and in. So you got the blacksmithing upgrades and so on. Roxaline, yeah. If you have questions, just throw them in there. It's fine. I'll answer as much as I can on any general subject to it. Will the exhaustion be implemented to 10.2? The current iteration of exhaustion already exists and is kind of embedded in one of the other config files. But the exhaustion polish and upgrade to it is coming in 10.2. Do you know if we'll get multi-material repair? Not at the moment, but it's something that I have been wanting to take a look at. The power hammer is a mechanic bench. Or, well, you know, it's used by blacksmith, but it is produced in mechanics. It's using an advanced upgrade. It'll also be tier 2. Tool repair system. You can still repair tools as is, but the some of the things in 10.3 and the maintenance update, we are looking at degrading tools with each repair. So the more you repair them, the worse they get. Eventually, they're just not going to be worth it, and you kind of scrap the old tools and get new ones. So, you know, we'll talk more on that subject once we get 10.2 out the door. There was what was the other one? Maybe that was it. Yeah, and then we have a few other things that are cooking. Have an extruder that I wanted to get in as well, but we just simply don't have the time for it. So that'll make an appearance later on, and that's where I'll shift over the pipes and some of the other things. We got some icons for the controversial molds now. So you've got uses for the iron smelting stuff and the steel smelting. And something that I completely forgot to mention in oh no, so we got give clay mold, give wooden mold, give ceramic mold. So you got these three. You got the clay mold, which is used to smelt iron, copper and gold. And then you have the wooden ones, which is used for creating the bricks. And then you have a ceramic one, which is more sturdy and used to craft steel. Yeah, I'll take a look. I'll need to take a look at this the store stuff. So in version 9, we were able to buy crops and meals rather fresh, and they would still take into account everything we had in the store. But right now, it's just looking and filtering on the level of threshold. But then the fireballs arrived and took over the world. Hey, have a cat that decidedly wanted to participate here. She regretted her decision now. He's like, I'm just here to check in. Walks away. I have checked in. But yeah, so one of the changes that I completely forgot to mention, outside of the fact that the blast furnace requires to be indoors now, which is going to be cool. And we'll also have an answer to Defeater's question here in a second, and that is steel is no longer using iron bars as its ingredient input. It is using iron concentrate. So there is going to be a bit of a short change in between. Smelters are still very much mandatory in a lot of things overall, because iron ingots or iron bars are still being used all over the place continuously, as well as the tools. But we didn't want to have advanced smelting be hard dependent on smelting. We wanted to kind of branch it off a little bit, because advanced smelting essentially meant you had to get smelting. With the change in overlap, that means that you are less, you are more, you're open to a more varying profession selection, rather than you have to pick both. You know, you can't get away with it. It takes twice the amount because it's producing twice the amount. And charcoal also has a bit of a change up as well. Like charcoal keeps being kind of shifted around, but you now have a separate recipe and a new recipe usage for it. So you got dense charcoal, which is using hewn logs. And you also have a use for it as well in terms of ink, which is used for the printing supplies to be able to copy and print, like upload textures. As for the actual like cost ratios to craft charcoals and back and forth, is probably something that will be continuously tweaked as we push things around. So there's a lot of things that's happening economically in this change. But yeah, looking forward to seeing how crazy this is gonna get. And as you can see, for the molds, you are getting a return mold, and we have also reintroduced that for the bricks as well. So you basically have one clay mold is, I think I'm running it on, just let me check the collaboration level just so we have proper numbers showing here. Let's switch this out to high, and then obviously I get massive quantity of assertions because I'm running in debug. Give me a second while I spam continue. Thank you. Yeah. So you get, and note that this is not using modules. So for one clay, you are getting 4 molds, which will reduce to half a clay, which means you need half a piece of clay on max bonus for 4 runs of smelting. So that's basically 12 bars for half a clay, which means it's not going to be a significant cost in terms of how much clay you need, because, you know, out of 1,000 clay you can produce 24,000 iron bars. But it's just having that dependency that is what we're looking for. It's not necessarily hugely costly for it. Molds the return feedback on them works the same way as barrels, so it's gonna decrease the quantity of malts you get back at the same rate that you reduce the quantity required. So it's always gonna have a drain. Zach, the reason why there's a different recipe is because one of them is using, the rate is different between charcoal versus coal. It's no longer using the tag coal. So because of the value, the value charcoal versus regular coal. So hopefully we should see some interesting potential of this being involved. Oh, look at that, and we get an amazing Unity crash there as well. But we are coming up on about an hour, so I think maybe it'd be a good time to kind of cut it a little bit short there. See if there's anything else I wanted to bring up. No, so it's kind of a summary thing with Exhaustion being something that we are very keenly looking into. We want to make sure that it gets appropriate love and attention to make it very, very usable and very customizable. Right now it's a little bit rigid and a little bit too hard coded. Also, Death Defeaters, Power Hammer and Blast Furnace needs to be in the same room for rebars. Yes, there's a few modular dependencies that have been changed. So you're gonna have a bit of a more workshop type necessity around it. Yeah, it works pretty much the same as the mechanic in the industry workshop, and that's something that will take over and kind of apply to a lot of the other professions as well. Carpentry and logging, etc., is going to be suffering the same thing. Looking at like some turntables, some wooden lathes, and some other machinery that we can fit in there that just expands on the profession a bit and expands more on the workshop space required to do these things. Power hammer takes electricity. Does that mean concrete is locked behind the electricity? Yes. But concrete is, like, electricity is available at the same time as the cement kiln anyway, because you have the steam engine. Instead of upgrades, you could have tables added to the room. There's going to be a little bit of a both scenarios. We're kind of looking at what we can do with the upgrades themselves in terms of dependencies. Oh yeah, sorry. The steam engine makes mechanical power now. Yeah, the routing path in my head kind of shifted things around. It makes sense once you start building things. The combustion engine is available earlier because so and so. So the steam engine is made initially to be able to feed the machinery in the workshop, and then the combustion engine, which you get at the end of the mechanics progression, enables the industry parts and enables you to get into that tier 3. As you still need electricity to run like the rolling mill to do corrugated steel. So having electricity as kind of a gateway into concrete made sense. You can have that stepping stone of you're at the end of the mechanical part. You can't just kind of slick into concrete right away without taking that leap. So that's something that we kind of wanted to unify a bit. And then you have, like, midway through industry, you have the expansion into tier 4. So there are, a few recipe changes there and a few progression path changes there. We're also looking at doing some fancy things with the perks and whatnot. So yeah, there, more things are coming. Hopefully everyone is super stoked for it. A general date for release of 10.2, we are looking at least getting a playtest going probably as soon as possible, I'd say. But we'll have more of an announcement date once everything's kind of stable. Yeah, we'll update with that. But we'll probably have news on it in fairly short time, I think. Wind turbines, I think, need to produce a little bit more power. All green energy will basically not be green energy in the future. We are looking at introducing ways to generate pollution, generate garbage out of everything. The maintenance stuff is gonna really rock the boat in that regards. So you're gonna need to refill stuff in the workbenches. You're gonna need to refill things in the power machinery and whatnot. This can be anything from mechanical parts that you assemble, or lubricant and oil-based products, and so on and so forth. So that's going to be a huge thing. When we have that in, we're probably going to look at tweaking the power values for some of those green energy parts. The reason why they're producing so little at the moment is just to offset the fact that they are infinite free 100% green energy, which has always been a huge problem in terms of eco environment, because we want pollution to be a big part of it. Even if it's a lot better, it's still gonna be producing or causing some pollution in its maintenance, basically. And we also want to shift away a bit from the whole at the current state of how pollution works and how everything kind of works in the game. You can get to a point where you completely mitigate all pollution across the board. Like, air pollution dissipates over time. There's no permanent pollution, there's no permanent damage. And that's something that we kind of want to dig into and see what we want to be shifting into, and kind of really digging into that part of the eco aspect of the game, rather than our last kind of 2 years have been very, very heavily focused into civics and the settlement system and kind of everything around that. It definitely is something that we wanna really spend the year on upgrading some of our other big core gameplay pillars. So it's gonna be an interesting ride this year. It's gonna be a lot of fun. It's gonna be a lot of new things and a lot of cool features. Stay tuned, stay updated, keep track on Discord to see news and updates, and catch you on the next time, and have a great weekend, and talk to you on Discord.